this links to the next speaker, that is Gianmarco Gioda, and he is the director of ANFIA, Italian Association of Automotive Industry, because at the end of this concept you mentioned, Paolo needs to fly, it cannot be without the strong support from the OEMs and the automotive industry. And actually ANFIA represents and offers services to companies in the automotive sector in order to support and strengthen the competitiveness, their growth in foreign markets, and their integration within transportation systems. So Gianmarco, now the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you for the invitation. You can see my presentation on the screen.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Very good.
Thank you. I will try to give you a brief presentation about our approach to the path of the decarbonization for our sector, for the heavy-duty sector. We are quite convinced that this path has already begun, and we have to invest all in to create, let me say, a better world in the future. So the industry is fully committed, and I will share with you some of our vision about this topic. Just to give you just a brief presentation, three words about how we are. We represent the whole automotive sector. We represent both manufacturers and also components company. In Italy, we have more than 400 companies that are members of ANFIA. I would like just to start my presentation giving you, let me say, a static picture of the heavy-duty sales in Italy. You can see from the picture that right now the percentage of alternative fuel trucks is quite limited in comparison with the total sales in Italy. Just BEV, hybrid, and LNG are 5–6% of the total market. But we are quite convinced that in the future, let me say, the market share of diesel that now is about 95% will absolutely be lower in the future, because electric trucks, but also hydrogen or bio-LNG trucks will put on the market in the next years. And if you want to achieve the objective to, let me say, reduce pollution and CO2 emissions in Italy and Europe, we have obviously to foster the market share of these vehicles in the future. Regarding the emission, the pollution and CO2, the industry, let me say, made a big improvement in the last 20 years. If we see NOx, that is one of the most important pollutants in Italy and Europe, we can see that there was a reduction roughly of 95% from 2000 and 2022, and probably also in the future reduction will be higher, because you know that a new regulation, the Euro 7, will be put in place from 2025, and this regulation will set more ambitious limits for the industry in order to reduce NOx and also PM10, PM2.5. If you see the CO2 emissions, also in this case, we register a good improvement in reducing the CO2 in the last 20 years. From 2018, there was a sort of voluntary agreement in the industry, and the reduction was about 29%. But from 2019, the European Commission set up a quite ambitious target for reducing also in heavy-duty industry the CO2 emissions, and there are some targets that the industry has to achieve in the future. For example, in 2025, the target is reducing 15% of CO2 in comparison to the 2018, and in 2030 the target will be minus 30%. But the news is that probably at the beginning of next year, a new regulatory framework will be set up from the Commission, and probably this target will be reviewed in a more ambitious way. Probably there will be set up also a target for 2035, like the passenger cars and like commercial vehicles. So let me say, the regulator is trying to put more ambitious target for reducing CO2. Obviously, the industry has to answer, has to put on the market products that will be able to match and to tackle this important target. You know that ANFIA is a sort of lobbying organization. So we do lobbying with Italian institutions. We also do lobbying with European institutions. And our mantra regarding the path to the decarbonization activities in the future is that we have to, let me say, use a sort of holistic and integrated approach to this issue. So we think that everyone has to do his part in this game. So the industry has to play an important role, because the industry has to invest a lot of money in research and development activities, in improving the process to manufacturers vehicles, improve also the capabilities to put on the road clean vehicles like hydrogen vehicles or electric vehicles. But we also think that the institutions have to do their role. And in this case, what we ask is that we need in Italy, but also in Europe, a sort of industrial policy that will be able to accompany this transition. So we think that we absolutely need a sort of long-term vision that will put on place some tools, some measures in order to, let me say, support the efforts that industry is undertaking. For example, we are asking a sort of, let me say, package of incentives for the next 5-7 years that will be able to encourage the fact that on the market we need to have electric vehicles, hydrogen vehicles, and you know that these vehicles cost a bit more than the other vehicles. We need also to try to cover the difference of the price with some incentives, like we are doing, for example, for passenger cars, in order to increase the market share of electric vehicles in Italy, but also in the other countries. Another important issue is that we need to absolutely foster the presence of infrastructure in Italy. I'm speaking about charging infrastructure for electric trucks for the future, but also refueling stations for hydrogen. I will come back on this point afterwards. And then just a tactical issue that I think that it's very important right now. I would like to share this request that we are doing with our institutions, with the new government. You know that right now CNG and LNG cost a lot. We ask for a sort of tax credit in order to make more convenient the LNG in Italy, because the paradox is that there are a lot of LNG and CNG trucks right now in the fleet of our freight transport companies, but they can't use them because the cost is unbelievable. So we need to try to mitigate these costs in the future. Speaking about infrastructure, that is the third pillar that I mentioned before in this integrated approach to the decarbonization of the sector. I don't go in details in this slide because it's quite complicated, but the idea is that in the AFIR, you know, the AFIR is the Alternative Fuels Infrastructure Regulation that is under discussion right now in Europe. We need to put quite ambitious targets also for the countries in order to set infrastructure in a capillary way in Italy and Europe. I'm speaking about power, but also number of stations and charging points. For example, in 10T core network, but also in 10T comprehensive network. If you see the slide in the red part, you see the Commission proposal, and in the other part, in the green part, the industry proposal, and there is a mismatch about the level of ambition that the Commission has in comparison to the industry needs. So these targets has to be reviewed, and as the industry, as the vehicle manufacturers, has to pay, let me say, penalties if they don't match the target of reduction of CO2. Also, the states, also the country, the member states, have to be, let me say, quite keen and direct to pose and to place this kind of infrastructure in the future. This is the last slide. I hope that I will stay in the time. The last slide is probably let me say a simple and a banal slide, but summarize what is the approach that we have in comparison to the technologies of the future. We think that in the future, every technology has to be chosen in comparison to the characteristics of the transport usage. So we think that for the near future, probably for urban and regional logistics, the electric vehicles will be the right choice, together also with hydrogen, because you know that Renault and also Stellantis have already in their product lineup some hydrogen like commercial vehicles that you can buy. So hydrogen electric technology will be probably the best for urban and regional logistics. We think that in the future, for the long range, for the long haul, fuel cell hydrogen will be the right solution, because it's able, let me say, to ensure competitive performance with diesel vehicles in terms of autonomy, in terms of refueling times, and also load capacity. But right now, in the immediate term, probably the biomethane power solution, for example, bio-LNG and bio-CNG, are already available and probably are at the right technology right now for the moment, waiting for the future technologies that I mentioned before. So that's all. Thank you for the time, and I'm available if you want also to answer some questions. Thank you.